What's good, YouTube? This is Gilbert Lala Lakers back with another video. This is going to be the first installment of a new series I have planned for the channel called Projected Potential. So, in this video, or in this series, I plan on covering some players that perhaps are a little bit early in their career, not necessarily always the case, but nonetheless, and cover a little bit of their past, include that, and also what is predictable for the future, and kind of get a grasp of what their ceiling is, and then of course what their worst case scenario is. So, what better player for the first installment than the young Lakers guard, number 2 overall draft pick in the in the last draft, D'Angelo Russell. So, but without further ado, let's go ahead and get onto it so you can see what I have in mind. So the first thing that I want to highlight about D'Angelo, and it should be the first thing that anyone talks about when we talk about this player, is his playmaking ability. So his passing skills are on par with very, very good NBA players at the age of what, 19, 20, whatever he is right now. So he definitely has a gift of floor vision. He finds those lanes. He can make the unorthodox pass if he needs to. So those are all things that, yeah, you can be taught those. I think people use that term. You can't teach certain things. Realistically, if you're coached correctly, you can teach a lot of these traits that NBA players have. Size, probably being the big exception. However, it's not always capable for a player to absorb that type of knowledge, or maybe perhaps if they do absorb it, it doesn't translate onto the court. So I do say that D'Angelo Russell would not be the latter. He is definitely a player that can absorb knowledge. He has a very high basketball IQ innately, and I think once he gets some experience under his belt against the elite level of NBA talent, he will definitely improve his skill set even more, even his strengths like the passing and the shooting ability. Those are things that I foresee him becoming not just good, which he already is, but great at. So definitely playmaking ability, point guard skills is something, or is an area where he for sure has it in him. So I'm excited to see what that brings the Lakers offense down the road. All right, so a little bit about the player specifically. He can play point guard, shooting guard. He plays both wing positions, or both guard positions. He's 6'5", 180, with a 6'8" 8.5 inch wingspan. I think he tested 6'9.5" at the NBA at the draft combine. So if it's gotten better, then fantastic, because that's a pretty damn good wingspan to have for a point guard. Definitely above average, I would say. He averaged 19.7 points, 5.7 boards, 5 assists, 40. This is all college stats, but mind you, in his 1 year, 35 games at Ohio State University, 47.9 from the field overall, 41.1 from downtown, and 75.6 from the free throw line. And as mentioned, that was in 35 games. So those averages show all around capability. Now, from the number 2 pick in the draft, you would kind of expect that if you're not just drafting solely on, a pure position player, what have you. Like if you're not drafting only a big center or only a pass first point guard, then you kind of expect to have a player that dominated at the collegiate level. Because if they're getting that much attention in the NBA draft, then they should have been well prepared for the NBA going back to the previous year. And he doesn't disappoint. Those numbers show that not only can he be the go-to player on a team, but he can score very efficiently. 47%, 41 from downtown. Those are great numbers that I would love to have from a 6'5" point guard any day. 75% from the free throw line. I anticipate that will increase as he gets some free throw reps and practice under his belt, because he's a much better shooter than that indicates. However, we all know free throws are more of a mental type of thing. So let's go ahead and move on to some of his strengths. So the transition three ball is one of the first things that stands out to me. He highly prefers, if it's available, he'll run down the court for a fast break and spot up for that three. Or he has the ability to make the correct pass. So transition is one of his strong suits that is kind of something that's overlooked by a lot of players and fans respectively, but it's the new generation of basketball. We hear it all the time. Oh, the game has gotten small, soft, weak, blah, blah, blah. Really, it's just evolved. Realistically, when you look at it, why wouldn't you want 3 points if you're a few or a couple feet back from a 2 point a 2 pointer? So that extra point can mean a lot going into the final outcome. So I think a lot of teams are having the tendency and are kind of teaching guys that if you're able to step out and hit that 3 point consistently, which is very important, consistently, then why not go for it? And I think that's transition. We saw how successful it was for the Warriors. The Atlanta Hawks are another team, and the old school Nuggets, the old school Don Nelson Warriors were also very successful with this type of up-tempo offense. And this is something that I think the Lakers kind of saw with D'Angelo. He's not just a pure playmaking point guard that's going to set up a half-court offense. He also has the versatility to be able to grab a rebound on one end, take it down, either shoot the spot up three for himself or make the correct pass to a wing that's traveling the lane. So definitely a new school type of player, and I think that will translate into very good success for his career. All right, so moving on to a couple of the bad things. He needs to develop some right-handed play. He kind of has a tendency to depend too much on his left hand. Now, in college, you may be able to get away with that. He has the handles because players at this level, when they have that good of a dribbling ability, they can kind of dictate. No matter how good of a defender you are, they can force their way to go whichever way they want. Like for example, he's a lefty, so he has the moves to be able, whether it's a between the leg spin or a crossover or what have you, he can force going left. But once he gets to the NBA level, the top tier perimeter defenders, they're going to know that. They're going to have their scouting reports. They're going to be ready for his type of play. And they're going to realize that he wants to go left 90% of the time. So they're going to force him right. And although he does show some ability to be able to drive right consistently, he doesn't really have a finishing move going right. He tends to settle for jump shots off the dribble or floaters heading into the lane, when I think for his size and frame, he would kind of be more successful if he just took it to the rim with force and had that aggressive persona in the paint and kind of abuse these smaller guys that are trying to guard him. I definitely think that that's something we'll need to see if he wants to become an elite scorer for this team down the road. And I'm pretty confident he can do it. He's already, like as I mentioned, he's shown ability to be able to drive, so he's halfway there. Now he just needs the ability to finish going right, and then that will completely eliminate that part of the scouting report, and then there will be no safe way to guard him at this level, which will be fantastic for him offensively. Another thing I want to touch on as a negative is off the ball, he kind of gets a little lazy, I would say. I don't blame him. Hey, D'Angelo, I'm lazy too. If you can find a breather for a couple seconds on defense, fantastic. But the problem is at that level, at the NBA level, that couple seconds will probably translate into a bucket for the enemy team. So I kind of I want to see him be a little bit more aware of his surroundings, and this kind of goes to offense and defense realistically. He's slotted to play the both shooting guard and point guard for this team. although I think I see him, mainly sticking to the point. However, if he does play that shooting guard, playing off the ball is going to be extremely important. He's going to have to run off screens. He's going to have to set picks and either slash or pop out for the perimeter jumper. And he just kind of once again settles for the lazy play. Like if someone beats him, he does that little behind the back reach or what have you. So those are things that eventually he'll learn. They're not going to be consistently successful, I hope. And I think he will change that for the better. All right, so this part of the segment, as I come to a close on this video, I do want to talk about the best and worst case scenario. So I'm going to make a current player comparison, kind of as the if D'Angelo reaches all his potentials for the foreseeable future, what kind of player he can turn into, and if he doesn't, if he kind of struggles throughout his career, what kind of player we can look forward to on that end as well. So for the best case, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving has elite handles. He still has that playmaking ability, but can score very efficiently. Whether it's from the perimeter or driving to the basket, which I personally think is his strong suit, and can become D'Angelo's strong suit down the road. So for a stat line for a best case scenario, I would put about 19 points per game, 4 boards, about 8 or 9 assists. I'm gonna go with 8 and a steal and a block on the defensive end. Now for a worst case, I'm gonna go with Darren Collison. So Darren Collison, if you're not familiar, he had that fantastic early start to his season, backing up Chris Paul in New Orleans, and he has since turned into a pretty serviceable point guard. I believe he plays for the Sacramento Kings currently. And he's the type of guy, he has the speed. I don't know if D'Angelo could ever get to that just level of quickness that Collison has. Obviously there's a big size differential, but his skill set overall, I do see D'Angelo having a worst case scenario of still being a very serviceable point guard. Collison can shoot the perimeter jumper, maybe not the best, but he still has a solid 3-point shot. He can drive the lane and still make playmaking passes, no matter even for his size. And I think D'Angelo will still be a little bit more successful just because he has a little bit better passing, in my opinion, and obviously a bigger frame to be able to absorb contact and still get off those type of passes in congestion in traffic. So for a stat line in the worst case scenario, I see about 10 points per game, 3 boards, 6 assists, maybe a steal, no blocks, something like that. So if I had to choose, I would obviously go with best case scenario. That's just kind of obvious in my opinion. Like this young man is very, very talented, and I'm extremely excited to see what he can do for the Los Angeles Lakers. So with that being said, that's going to conclude the first episode of Projected Potential on D'Angelo Russell. I hope you enjoyed. I will have the time marks in the description. Remember, if you enjoy the video, remember to like it. Leave a comment down below as well if you have anything more to discuss or any video ideas. And this has been Gilbert, Lala Lakers. I will talk to you guys later.